Let's do it. You got a 30-minute, right?
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
Strong words from the vice president.
Hey, and welcome back. This is another episode of Semper Fallis, and today we're going to be talking about the Ukraine-Russia update on the conflict, and the person that you just heard is Vice President Kamala Harris.
Kamala.
Now, so the audio you just heard is she was on a syndicated radio show called The Morning Hustle, which the bulk of the audience is the black the black community,
Black demographic, yeah.
yeah. And so what you just heard is quite possibly the most dumbed down way to try to explain what's happening in Ukraine, and in a way that seems like you're either talking to people as if they're children or as if they're too stupid to understand. I'm going to play it again real quick. I just want you to listen to it and think for a second that there are adults of all different demographics, but primarily the black demographic.
Before you push play, real quick, do you remember she had a bunch of kids and she was talking about how they would all be astronauts in the next, their generation, they'd all be going up. This sounds like she's talking to like children again, but on a much more adult topic.
Yeah, and she's not talking to children though.
She's talking to
it's a morning radio show, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, none of my kids listen to the radio.
It's a dead media.
Yeah, I mean, they'll go on Pandora or Spotify or something, and so be it. I'm gonna play it. Here we go. We're gonna listen to it one more time.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
Basically, that's wrong. That's wrong. She's not wrong saying that it's wrong.
These are the people in charge of our fucking country.
Yeah, these are them. I didn't even transition this over. Hold on. I don't even know if they heard that. But anyway, this is what you guys were listening to. I'm just, I want to show you that it's from the Morning Hustle. Andy No tweeted about this or retweeted this because he also thought it was strange that this is how the vice president would talk to the black community, or at least, the bulk of the audience of this radio show would be the black community.
Now, do you think it's weird that Democrats, and we've seen it recently with Barack Obama and Kamala Harris, even Hillary Clinton would have a different draw or accent about herself when talking to those voters, which is kind of like pandering.
Yeah, it's definitely something. I mean, the phrase that always comes to mind when I see politicians do this or speak in this manner to any demographic is the soft bigotry of low expectations. But that normally wouldn't apply to someone that claims minority status. I don't know, like they've changed what Kamala Harris's background is.
Well, it's Jamaican and Indian.
But then they say, then they'll say that she's Asian, but then another time they'll say that.
Well, that's like Warren being Native American.
Well, no, maybe, I don't know. Warren's what, like, not even a percentage. But yeah, the whole thing is, it's a little bit ridiculous. But since we're talking about Ukraine and Russia, I have a little video clip that I found while going over all the propaganda and information that's flooding the internet right now. And this one that I found is, let me see if I can pull it up for you. This one that I found is, it's not new, but it's being presented as new, but it's still funny. So just quick watch right here. Just enjoy a little bit of the hard-nosed personality that is the culture of people in Ukraine and probably Russia too. So here we go.
Just having a good old time.
Just having a great time, man.
Do you see the leisurely stance of that guy in the tracksuit?
Yeah.
Whatever.
He's just chilling. He doesn't care. Oh, hold on. That's another one. So I guess we'll just segue right into it. This video right here, this one is.
Do we transfer?
Oh, no, this one's already on.
Okay.
It's already on. But this one right here is, I have no way of verifying whether or not it's accurate or not. And you tell me what you think. We're going to go ahead and watch this real quick.
Чу? Я не бачу. Ой, Боже.
Close air support.
Yeah, so I don't know what the target was, but obviously it's in a rural area.
Someone trying to film with a BlackBerry handheld.
Yeah, it's a Nokia brick. They were playing Snake, and then there was a bomb that
Not
went off.
happening.
So obviously they weren't happy, but you're seeing a lot of this. So as you go through the Twitter feed, especially, it seems to be riddled with updates. Some of them are good. What do you think? I've seen some good stuff.
Yeah,
Have you seen some good stuff?
The problem with Twitter, I mean, we all know, is the bot mechanism that's ingrained in that whole sphere. That you just one thing says, and then you see there's 90,000 other things saying the exact same captions over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But there is good stuff. You just have to pick through it. You have to, do a little homework and find the story and the meat of the potatoes of what's actually happening in that little tweetosphere, whatever they call it.
Yeah. And so in my this map is probably already out of date because there have been incursions and forces moving in different parts of Ukraine. But the whole point of this update is not so much about the current status of what's happening in Ukraine, because we're all being inundated with information about it all the time. But it's more important for us to take a second and try to consider what got us here, right? So we're looking at this map. You see Ukraine, you see Kiev, you see the eastern region, the Donbass region, where you see Luhansk and Donetsk, and then also Mariupol and that southern land bridge, that southern coastline that I have outlined in red. I see these, and you tell me what you think, but I see these as the primary targets of, as far as land is concerned and regions of Ukraine, I see these as the primary targets. Because if you're Russia, you have this annexed area, which is Crimea, that you cannot access by land. And if you were to establish that as a Russian separatist region or some sort of independent colony, if you will, then now you have a means of transporting large cargo, tanks, and other equipment on land to Crimea. So I see that as really, you're seeing in the news, they're saying that there's bombings happening in Kiev, there's bombings happening in Kharkiv, there's attacks allegedly all the way over in Lviv, and that may be happening. My guess is that those are distractions. I don't think that Putin would be going for those. What do you think?
No, I think that they have a pretty good network of saboteurs working inside the state of Ukraine right now, and some of those more not popular targeted sites like Kiev and Donetsk and Kharkov, Mariupol. It's like the cities of Liev that are out west, which are kind of like the nexus of getting people that want to leave out, but will also be the hub of bringing all that arsenal from Europe into Ukraine so they can effectively resist the Russians.
Yeah. Now, so we all know that after the annexation of Crimea, Ukraine and Russian diplomatic relationships have essentially dissolved into nothing. And it's pretty apparent if you've been following it at all, or if you've taken the time to kind of look back, that this is being caused by two parties, and Ukraine's not actually one of them. This is the NATO powers, U.S. and the NATO allies, pushing closer and closer to Russia, putting pressure on Russia, loading up the border area of Russia in various countries with anti-air missiles, NATO military equipment and personnel, and also moving further eastward as far as the network that is NATO, and inducting countries that are, former USSR members. What is it? Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania.
Yep.
And so they've been pushing. Now mind you, that NATO was originally, it was meant to stop the rise of the USSR.
Yeah, the big red machine, the Iron Curtain.
And originally, Russia's concern and what they essentially put forward towards NATO was, that we will not respond in any sort of physical warlike way if you cease growth of NATO after the reinduction of Germany. But that didn't stop. So NATO kept pushing. They've gathered these other former USSR countries, and they've literally placed all these troops and equipment and supplies and bases closer and closer to the border of Russia. And now add Ukraine into this mix. The same thing applies. So Ukraine, after the annexation of Crimea and after, it's been going on longer than that, but since Ukraine pretty much broke off, which was, what was that, the 90s?
92, I believe.
Yeah. But since they got rid of their more Russian, what would you
Overlords?
say? Yeah, and their former president of Ukraine was a Russian enthusiast, a Russian supporter. If anything,
Sympathizer.
Yeah, yes, that's the word, sympathizer. So they ousted him, and now you have, what is it, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this. I've been saying his name all week. Lewinsky, whatever.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But
The president of Ukraine.
yeah, the president of Ukraine that's in there now.
Vladimir Zelensky.
Yes, thank you. See, I was close. But he's more of a sympathizer of the West, and I mean, you've seen that in his recent actions where he's been pleading to join the EU, making attempts, whether it be directly from Ukraine or NATO themselves, to try to bring in Ukraine. And so, obviously that's putting pressure on Russia. But that is not the primary reason why Russia has a problem with Ukraine right now. So I'm going to bring this in here. So, as you see, right, let me pull it where you can see. All right, so you can't read it, but it says, this is a Bloomberg article from March 19th of 21. It says, Crimea's water crisis is an impossible problem for Putin. And we don't even really need to go into this, but the bulk of this is, since the annexation of Crimea, Ukraine has shut down their dams and prevented water flow that traditionally had gone into Crimea and kept their farmlands lush and fertile. So since this has been closed down and there's no water flow, the towns have literally been drying up and dying off, and Crimea has been consolidating, and Russia has been pouring
Money.
lots and lots of money, billions upon billions,
And getting nowhere.
They've literally, so as you see, so let's see here. So water emergency in Crimea is absorbing billions of taxpayer rubles in Russia as they try to patch the impossible problem stemming from the peninsula's annexation in 2014. Vladimir Putin's Black Sea gem looks increasingly like a millstone. It's weird that they're patching, throwing up to be a dud, but Crimea itself was a great and luscious farmland prior to this.
Which is part of why he wanted it with the Sevastopol shipyard.
Yeah, and so if you look, and we're going to another one. This is I don't know this news outlet, so I can't speak to the authenticity or
It kind of tracks what we're getting at, though, and
Yeah.
please do your own research.
it seems relevant. So this is from InformNapalm. It says Crimea digs deep to solve its water supply problems. And literally, you can find this yourself if you go to informnapalm.org and look up the Crimea water supply problems. But essentially, if you scroll down, I want to get to, you know what, I think I have it right here. No, it's right here. Okay. So it says, in general, the present day situation with the Crimea water supply is very close to critical because all measures being taken by the new authorities, which I imagine are Russian sympathizers or Russia themselves, are unsystematically and can't offer any real progress. dredging and deepening of the reservoirs, increasing the share of underground water sources, construction of connector canals, etc. All of these local measures that cannot have any global effect. Most of these measures are dictated by the political leadership and have no common sense background. A striking example of this is the construction of a temporary pipeline from the Prostonetsk and Nezensk water intakes to the bed of the North Crimean Canal. So they're just saying that these things don't work. But
Well, I mean, Ukraine artificially blocked the man-made canal to allow water to go into Crimea.
so if you don't have your natural water supply, which is a large river, and now all of a sudden there's no water running in, and all your outdated irrigation systems that once used water from that source are now dry, you're trying to come up with magical solutions to solve the problem. And so it says, according to official figures, Crimea's water utility infrastructure wear reached 74.4% in 2013, and the loss of water supply systems was close to 20 or 25%. Given the heavy losses during the transport of water in the North Crimean Canal, about 20%, no more than 60% of the incoming water reaches users. To correct the situation, between 10 and 12 billion rubles are required by 2020, which they have spent, by the way. And the plans also include the repair of about 1/3 of the 1.5 thousand artesian wells already operating in Crimea. Also, it is necessary to drill an additional 150 wells. 5 billion rubles are required to fulfill those plans as well, up
Now,
to 2020.
With all that spending, the Russian government even brought in hundreds of $millions of farming equipment to try to make the land sustainable, and it wasn't working.
I mean, then you can say that Russia failed on an engineering feat,
Absolutely.
if you will, and I don't know if there was any way that they could have succeeded. And if you look at the picture at the top of this article, it just goes the extent of the pipelines that they were trying to install, and that they did install. You can see it's a massive undertaking. It's not a small feat, and yet it still fell flat on its face. There was nothing solved by it, and lots of money just poured into it.
So, Alex, after 8 years of trying to make it work and nothing's working, you're not getting met anyway, what do you do?
Well, it's funny that you ask. One thing that you do is you try to solve it diplomatically, right?
Yeah.
So
come to the table.
Russia has made several attempts to bring Ukraine to the table to open up these dams and restore water flow to Crimea. That didn't work. Then Russia filed lawsuits, human rights lawsuits in international courts to try to bring them to heel, to get them to open these dams and restore water flow to Crimea so that the people of Crimea don't die off of starvation and famine or what have you. All of these were met by dead ends. Every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that leave next?
Well, I mean, it was like we always talked, what is it always about? The big 3-letter word. W-A.
Oh, war. Yeah, I was going to say resources, but that's a lot longer than 3 letters.
But that's what war is, to
Yeah.
fight for resources.
And so now we have developing is a war. And so if you remember the map that I pulled up, let me see if I can grab that again. Pull that up. If you remember, so in this map, you see the southern region where it looks like Russia is, where I'm guesstimating that Russia is going to concentrate its focus. It's going to go for the southern land bridge. But you see just north of the area marked, there's a river. This is the...
Dnieper.
Is it? Yeah, Dnieper, which is similar to that. And so I actually made the estimation, or I made the lofty guess. When we were talking about this the other day, I said that I think Russia, may or may not, have attacks in the eastern region, have attacks in other cities. Like, yeah, you've got reported attacks in Kiev and Lviv. But I think that Russia, once they secure the southern region, and once they restore water flow to Crimea, you're going to see Russia being willing to go to the table and have diplomatic talks.
Well, that's what happened 2 days ago. That's exactly what happened. They secured, I don't know if they secured, was it, excuse my butchering of Mariupol.
So as far as I know, they have secured it.
I know that I haven't heard that yet, but they could have. I know the Russian Marines landed about 1,200, went ashore, but it looks like they've secured all the way up to where the Ukrainians had created the artificial dam for the Crimean North Canal and destroyed it, and water is flowing again.
Yeah.
And now we're at the table.
Yep, and like clockwork, we see the news coming in. Even on Fox News, they have this little quote: "The fight is here." Children reported dead as Zelensky vows to stay and fight. And then just apparently not the headline: the military thwarts dam attack. The dam attack should be the key element of this tweet, I guess. I guess they want to bring your attention to kids potentially being killed because it pulls on the heartstrings, if you will. But it seems like media, and I mean all media, we're pulling up historical articles, but current media regarding this conflict, none of them, not one, is talking about the water shortage and the fact that Ukraine shut off the water. They manually started this. You couple the water shortage with Russia, Russia needing to find a way to provide for Russians. They don't want their people to die off. So they're struggling for solutions. They've poured endless money into it with no results. At the same time, you've got the NATO forces and allies pouring into, the countries on the border of Russia and also gaining more and more influence in Ukraine, while Russia has been repeatedly warning them not to do so and essentially threatening to do what we're seeing happen right now. And so the result was clear. So the way I look at this whole conflict, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong, I think this is a conflict that was created by Western nations, by NATO nations, NATO allies, as some sort of attack against Russia. And Ukraine is just, it's not the same as a proxy war, but they're essentially the proxy. That's the way I see this.
Yeah, it's the Russia, U.S., Afghanistan again.
So to me, I see you're seeing all this propaganda of attacks and children being hurt and schools being shot with missiles and
Hospitals being shot
up. And some of them you have to wonder, how much of this is real. And then there's, other ones that, they're coming out and everyone's going on and on about them and how amazing it is. And they're reports mostly for what I would gather to be morale boosting. So
yeah, it's a big old psyop, national boost of morale, spread the core.
So what do you think about the ghost of, is it Kiev? Yeah, the ghost of Kiev.
To think that an Su, 29 pilot from Ukraine who's never seen combat in his life got up in the air one morning and downed 6 aircraft all by himself is pretty outlandish.
Yeah. And if any of you have seen the footage, it's already been reported that footage is actually from a combat flight simulator. And so you're being told that the ghost of Kiev is killing these evil Russian aircraft, fighter pilots, with amazing efficiency. And, if you're a soldier on the ground fighting for Ukraine,
it feels good.
You're going to feel great about this. You're going to cheer. It's going to restore morale, and everyone, everyone's going to be ready to fight, right? So I understand the use, but the one thing that I hate more than anything in this world is fake news. Just lies and
false
propaganda and these manipulative headlines that, try to tug on your emotions and pull you away from what is the truth. So the ghost of Kiev, by the way, is utterly false.
It was completely false and fabricated. Sure, it sounded good, though, first day out of the gate, though.
It's a great story. I think I may have saved the footage. I tried to save it. Let me see. No, I don't have it now. But the other thing, so you've got the buildup with the water and NATO pushing their forces closer and closer to Russia. You've got propaganda. There's some funny clips. You've got video clips all, flooding the internet with, Ukrainians, civilians that are throwing Molotov cocktails on Russian equipment. Shootouts are happening with Russians. And, you know, it just seems very strange to me because when we think of the Russian military, what do you think? What do you think
I
of?
mean, we grew up with the big red machine was going to come and get us, and I don't know. Everything we do in the military was even the targets we shoot at on the infantry ranges. They're little green dudes with AKs called pop-up Ivans.
Yeah,
Our sights and our LAVs and our tracks and our tanks are designed to be metered and target bracketed for BMPs.
yeah.
Like that's everything we do is to kill Russians, and then all of a sudden they can't even bring gas to go 200 miles from their front fucking door.
No.
And then their rations are 7.5 years old, and it's just this is a big old clusterfuck.
Yeah, and they don't even. Most of these Russian soldiers that at least have been captured. the
Oh,
ones that
conscripts.
they're conscripts, and they don't know that they're even in a military op. They
no
think they're
fucking
training.
idea.
They don't even know they're at war. And then on top of that, you've got. I just want to pull up this clip because I think it's funny. So, this is a clip of a bomb being dropped. It lands in an industrial sector, right? And just watch it, and then watch the people in the background. Just
Yeah, it's a Caliber cruise missile.
none of these fucking people even responded.
I don't know if they know what the hell's going on.
But they didn't even jump, man.
That's a good thing.
Either
That was a good thud.
Either they have nerves of steel, which they could have because of ongoing conflicts, or this explosion.
I don't know. I remember my first ever mortar attack. And I was like, "What is that?" And people are running past me because they knew what was going on. I was like, "That was loud.
Uh-oh.
Somebody drop a hand grenade?"
Yeah. And then you got this one.
Oh, this poor kid.
Yeah, this one's tough.
Talk about astronomical failure in timing.
So all these videos have been pulled off Twitter. There's no way to verify sources, so we don't claim to know whether or not they're authentic, whether or not they're propaganda. We're just going off of gut.
This is the problem with the Russian MLRS system, is it's going to fire pretty indiscriminately into a large area. You're not going to get pinpoint accuracy, and that's what you saw there. Yeah, a folded up kid, just riding her bike,
Yeah.
14 years old.
So don't be mistaken. So me and Doc talking about this and trying to narrow this down to what we think is really the truth doesn't mean that we stand with Russia. By no means.
No.
If these attacks are real, which some of them I have no evidence to prove they aren't, then they've already gone way too far. Just shooting into non-militarized areas,
Yeah, big problems.
attacking civilians, children dying. None of that's okay under any circumstances. But at the same time, like our experience with the military is a lot of this stuff doesn't seem to add up. Some of it does.
Well, the weirdest thing is this should have been the first social network, social media war, where everyone's got a camera and everyone's recording war as it happens. We're just really not getting the video feed like that we did. I remember 2004. I could jump on YouTube. Was YouTube even around back then? You could go on like Live Leak and you could find thousands and thousands of videos. And here you're really getting kind of piecemealed a little bit.
Oh yeah, and it's so the question that comes to mind.
The big one.
The big question with anything, especially any conflict that the U.S. gets involved with, what does the U.S. get out of this? What do we stand to gain, right? So
That's a tough picture right now.
So you look at recent developments. So I'm going to pull something up real quick. Just give me 1 second. You look at recent developments, and you have to ask yourself, is this what is causing our attention to just almost go to tunnel vision towards Ukraine? Let's see. Hold on.
That's the old smoke and mirrors. Over here, pay attention over here. And meanwhile, we're just, reaching from behind and goating you a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't have one that's older right now. I mean, I could probably pull one up later, but I'm gonna just move this over here. This is from the BBC. All right. So I'm not really interested in reading the article, but I just wanted to talk about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So the American dollar It's not backed on gold, right?
Correct. Not anymore. Not since Nixon.
So it's a fiat currency backed on hopes and dreams, right?
Correct.
So that's what it is on paper. However, it is the petrodollar that keeps the American currency floating. That's what keeps us alive. So in order to stay as the powerful economy that we are, where everyone lives high on the hog, we have to have the petrodollar. Now, to keep the petrodollar, most countries in the world have to operate on the petrodollar, which means they operate as using the dollar as the global, the global
Currency.
the global reserve currency, or using it whenever they do a transaction involving petroleum. So there have been countries in the past that tried to veer away from this. You know, countries like Iraq, countries like Libya, countries like Syria, countries like Sudan, and now maybe Russia. Does anyone have anything in common with those?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, so so now that Russia has the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, they have a means to pump their fuel, their petroleum products, into Europe, directly to Germany and other parts of the EU. And knowing that Russia has a powerful economy and they are not friends of the United States, but they are friends with countries like China and Belarus and other countries that we have villainized, do you expect them to use the petrodollar?
No, not if they don't have to.
No. So if they can go away from it, just by announcing that they're going to, that would immediately destroy our currency. And then as soon as the petrodollar is not the global reserve currency, all the Americans in the world, especially the ones living in America, suddenly have no money because their money is worthless. It's not backed on anything. So you have a couple of scenarios kind of meshed in two. So Donald Trump made a comment in the past about how dangerous it was to get involved with Russia with their pipeline. I'm going to pull this up right here. It's a short video, if it loads.
And it's going to be dependent on them.
Yeah, and it builds relations too.
Yep. And he's right. Oh, truth bomb.
Yeah, he's dropping bombs.
He's right. He's right. He's right.
He's 100% right. And for two reasons. You know, Trump goes on. You can't expect any leader of the United States to bring up the fact that this is about the petrodollar. So he goes into the fact that this creates a relationship with Russia. You know,
And Germany.
Yeah, so Russia and Germany start tightening their trade relationship. It starts with petro.
It used to be bros before the wars.
Yeah, and yeah, they did. And then it expands into other consumer goods and other imports and exports, right? And then as their markets start to mesh, we get pushed out.
That's right.
And then as the United States is not required in more of these transactions, there's more and more of a push to move away from the petrodollar.
Right.
Whether it be, you know, just by default because they're not really using American currency in any of these transactions, or if it's intentional, like what you saw with Saddam Hussein when he announced that they were going to go to using the euro instead of the petrodollar. They were going to do the petro euro, and now he's dead. So there's, I guess all I'm really saying here is this: be aware that you're not being told the whole story.
You're being dicked.
You're being dicked, and you can't, as an American citizen, if you like your way of life but you don't mind blood on your hands, then you can get behind what they're doing, because without them doing this constant warmongering and bullying anyone who wants to get away from the petrodollar, our way of life changes drastically. It's something that you have to understand that truth. But if you don't like blood on your hands, which, and you don't want this unnecessary killing of any country that just kind of wants to operate independently, then, the reserve currency wouldn't be the dollar anymore. It was very soon, it might, if we're unlucky, it might be the yen.
Yeah, and then you can watch all your creature comforts of being an American citizen, this first world, pretty much come to an end real quick, and you're going to have to tighten that belt strap.
Yeah. So I see if you were to we're going to wrap this up real quick because we already did one tonight, by the way. So when you get a chance, watch what was supposed to be a live stream about the State of the Union. It was meant to be a live stream, and it didn't go live, but it recorded, so we're going to publish it. But there's two ways to look at this. If they're truly trying to protect the petrodollar, then you as an American, you might have some level of guilt that you have to understand within yourself, but you're not necessarily getting dicked, which is weird. But if you look at, they're removing Russia out of the SWIFT payment system. They haven't yet, but they're saying they will. If they collapse our currency on purpose while kicking these other countries out of the SWIFT payment system, and freezing up their accounts, where these other countries are then going to try to find another means, which might turn to crypto.
It's even bigger than that. The citizens of these countries are going to rush the banks.
Yeah, so you're going to see a massive collapse of currencies all around the globe.
All around. And that leads to another point.
Because of actions like this. And this may be, I'm not saying it is, but it may be on purpose.
Yeah. Well, they've always wanted to go to a one world currency, and I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah. So if you spend any time reading into the Great Reset and to the globalist Agenda 2030, you will own nothing and you'll be happy, then you need to weigh this heavily, because it seems like the intent is to collapse the global markets, collapse the currencies around the globe, and institute a global currency starting from scratch. Yep. But you, as a regular person, aren't starting from scratch because you don't control the hard assets.
No.
So all the properties and equipment, the means of production, sorry, that's not in your hands. So the elites that are in those positions start from scratch holding all the tools, and you are just a peasant.
That's it. And you'll be happy.
You'll be dicked.
Oh, and you'll also have a special card, the social credit score. So
Yes.
Depending on how good of a citizen you are is how much food you can buy that week.
Yeah, and what you can buy.
And what you can buy, exactly.
So if you don't want to be dicked and you want to know what's going on,
pay attention to Semper Fallis.
yeah, come watch Semper Fallis. Enjoy our videos, like them.
Comment.
Hit the, subscribe, ring the bell. Make sure you comment. Let us know if you think we said something stupid. We'd love to talk about it more. We'll dig a little deeper. But we just want to make sure that you're aware that there's more going on here. There's a surface level argument of what you see on the news, and then there's really what's happening. And so we're trying to kind of, pull the surface away and show you what's really going on without going too far into conspiratorial territory, because the Great Reset is not a conspiracy. It's all been announced.
Planned.
The World Economic Forum does not even hide this crap. It's
open.
So just do your own due diligence, and if you don't want to do it, come here. We'll do some, and we'll tell you about it. So
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll have a discussion.
So from us here at Semper Fallis, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and come back for your daily dose of dickage for our next video.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Later.